From the now well-known Ethan Harel Foundation, whose existence and operations have been the subject of previous features on this channel, new information has emerged linking its specialists to unusual events during the 1990s. While much of this material has circulated for years on the internet through forums, leaked documents, and content often dismissed as fiction, some of these accounts contain elements that may reflect partially factual events. Specifically, there is mention of a series of phenomena later associated, at least in internet culture, with the so-called SCP entities. Although that archive is officially regarded as a collaborative work of fiction, certain temporal, geographic, and descriptive coincidences have led some researchers to dig deeper into its possible connections with real-life incidents. Between 1995 and 1996, in the remote region of Karajat, located in one of the most uninhabited areas of Greenland, European and Canadian workers, including engineers, geology technicians, and mining personnel, reported the emergence of underground pulses with no identifiable seismic source. These signals were first picked up by seismographic equipment used to monitor the stability of the mining sites, which were still in an exploratory phase as operations had only recently begun in the late 1980s. The irregularities in the readings intensified over time, prompting more detailed inspections that included thermal scans of the subsoil. It was through this technology that the first anomalous images were captured, thermally active shapes of unusual proportions, appearing to correspond to a partially fossilized organic structure, lying in what seemed to be a dormant or inactive state. This discovery triggered an immediate alert that bypassed the usual channels of mining operations. Within weeks, thanks to a special permit granted directly by the Kingdom of Denmark, Greenland's administrative authority, all mining activity in the affected area was officially suspended. The site, which had seen no more than 6 years of preliminary exploitation, was handed over to personnel affiliated with the Ethan Harel Foundation, who had prior experience dealing with phenomena not classified within the conventional parameters of geological or biological science. Since 1987, the State of Israel had maintained a facility near the Umanak Fjord, a classified base that was officially presented as an international climate research center. It was at this facility that logistical and technical efforts were concentrated to begin a controlled excavation and extraction process of the specimen. At the onset of the extraction from beneath the Karajat subsoil, the specialists leading the operation began recording behaviors that pointed to a gradual reactivation of the specimen's biological functions. Although the entity had initially been interpreted as being in a fossilized or prolonged dormant state, a series of physiological responses began to emerge as it was removed from its original environment. Among the first signs observed were slight muscular contractions resembling autonomous reflexes and an extremely faint respiratory pattern, barely detectable even with high-sensitivity instruments. Additionally, low-frequency sound emissions were documented, so deep they were almost imperceptible to the human ear without amplification. These signs reinforced the hypothesis that the creature was not entirely inert, but rather exhibiting minimal yet sustained responses to external stimuli. An unexpected event occurred during the transport of the creature to the Foundation's central facility. 3 workers, all with technical backgrounds and no prior history of suggestibility or emotional instability, reported being attacked by the entity at different times. All 3 described the projection of a dark, viscous substance expelled from an opening that, based on its shape and location, was interpreted as a primary or secondary jaw. This substance, whose origin remains undetermined, appeared to have variable density and adhered to both clothing and skin, though it caused no burns or immediate detectable effects. Nevertheless, the incident led to heightened security protocols, and speculation about the creature's adaptive capabilities and responsiveness began to gain traction among the scientific team. These incidents gave rise to the hypothesis that the organism possessed a non-static physical composition, potentially subject to alteration depending on environmental conditions, perceived threat level, or type of interaction with other living beings. This theory was reinforced by observations of increasingly aggressive behavior toward individuals attempting close examination, prompting the establishment of a controlled perimeter throughout the transportation and containment process. Once relocated, the creature was submerged in a large tank, originally filled with water, with the goal of facilitating observation in a controlled setting that would allow the study of its reactions without invasive procedures. Initially, water was considered a neutral element, useful for visual monitoring and for maintaining a degree of physiological stability in the specimen. However, over the following weeks, the Foundation's bioengineers began to notice an alarming pattern. Rather than keeping it in a passive state, the water appeared to aid the organism's physical recovery. The creature's biological tissue showed signs of reinforcement, accelerated cell growth, and, on at least 3 documented occasions, coordinated attempts to escape the tank. These were not merely reflexive movements, but actions that suggested a basic form of intent and a rudimentary understanding of its surroundings. In light of evidence showing continuous regeneration and an unusual resistance to physical containment, an emergency protocol was activated. This protocol included measures designed to immobilize the organism without fully destroying it. Despite the effort, the response only succeeded in keeping it confined within the limits of the tank. It did not reduce its regenerative activity or lessen its potential threat. At that point, the decision was made to replace the water with a solution composed of hydrochloric acid in varying concentrations, along with corrosive compounds engineered to induce a state of constant decomposition in the creature's outer tissue. What was discovered after introducing this new medium proved especially significant. The creature was not only capable of regenerating tissue at speeds unknown to any terrestrial life form, but its regeneration appeared to scale in proportion to the level of inflicted damage. The acidic compounds, however, managed to establish a partial equilibrium in which ongoing tissue breakdown prevented the organism from reaching full functionality. In other words, while its regenerative capacity remained active, it was held in check, allowing for a state of apparent stability in which the creature remained harmless, though not inactive. This chemically induced biological balance, maintained under strict supervision, became the only effective measure preventing the specimen from escaping. Unfortunately, and consistent with other reports linked to the Ethan Harel Foundation, some of the procedures carried out after the creature's containment have raised serious ethical concerns. According to documentation leaked years later, the Foundation allegedly requested the extradition of incarcerated individuals, including those serving long-term sentences and inmates classified as highly dangerous, for the purpose of conducting direct experimentation on the creature. Sources indicate these individuals were transferred under irregular circumstances through confidential agreements and placed under intense surveillance within the underground facility where the organism was housed. During these forced interactions, the creature was observed to undergo frequent and substantial morphological changes. Its size, density, and body structure fluctuated in ways that appeared erratic, yet behavioral logs revealed patterns suggesting a degree of responsiveness to the psychological or emotional profile of each exposed subject. The entity not only altered its form, but also its behavior, seemingly adapting its strategies of attraction or manipulation to suit the individual it encountered. Several of the inmates, prior to their disappearances or deaths, reported that the creature spoke to them, though not in any traditional verbal sense. They described hearing voices inside their minds, messages articulated directly into their consciousness, as if the entity possessed some form of telepathic or hypnotic communication. These reports were accompanied by accounts of intense sensory hallucinations, memories reconstructed with altered details, visions of deceased family members, and visual distortions of the surrounding environment. Taken together, these effects appeared engineered to break the individual's will, compelling them, whether voluntarily or under influence, to approach the creature's core. According to internal reports, the ultimate fate of these subjects was invariably fatal, as they were consumed by the creature in episodes described with extreme violence and slow anatomical decomposition. These practices, never officially acknowledged by the Foundation, further cemented the perception that the entity was not merely a biological anomaly, but a presence with cognitive and strategic components. Its actions were not purely instinctive. There was a clear deliberateness in how it explored, manipulated, and destroyed. To this day, according to sources who continue to speak under strict anonymity, the creature remains contained in a high-security facility, buried deep within the ice in Greenland's subsoil. Surveillance persists, as do efforts to understand its origin, its capabilities, and its possible limitations. Meanwhile, the events of Karajat have faded from the public consciousness, resurfacing only in altered form, transformed into fictional accounts circulating through online forums and digital archives. And so was born one of the most enduring legends of the contemporary internet, the entity known as SCP-682.